Welcome to Beyond Schizophrenia. This channel is about empowering you to just to be the best you can be, to get outside of your comfort zone, to just go beyond where the boundaries that the healthcare system, the healthcare model is for schizophrenia, the limitations they set for you. And to just, and it's really about challenging myself as well. For me, I've thought about creating this channel and putting just my story and the mentality that I use to overcome schizophrenia and get my life back. But I thought about it, and I really didn't want to put my face out there, I wanted to put like just some backdrop and kind of, read off a script or something. I'm not really that, I'm not good at speaking. I'm not really good at speaking, but writing I'm better at. So, but because I'm uncomfortable doing this, because I don't want to do it, I've decided to do it. Do it this way, in this format, just put myself out there. So, and that's interesting because this video I wanted to make is about your comfort zone. It's about getting outside your comfort zone, and I want to title it Schizophrenia and the Power of the Comfort Zone. And when I label things the power of, and as you can see in some of my other videos, that's what I title them. And that's because there's always at least two powers at war inside you. There's at least two. There is really two of them, right? There's one that tells you this is what you ought to do, but the other one tells you, well, do this because of whatever, all the obstacles to actually doing what you want to do, And so one of the dangers that I found was, I've done a video called Schizophrenia and the Power of Isolation. So there are good powers, something that is strengthens you, right? The power of hope, right? The power of giving thanks, so that's those are good powers. But then when there's the power of isolation, that doesn't strengthen you; it weakens you. It binds you and holds you into a state of that it will punish you. And so the comfort zone, the power of the comfort zone, is similar, and it coincides with the power of isolation. Because the reason why we stay isolated or we desire isolation is because isolation is comfortable. You see what I'm saying? It's comfortable because we don't have to deal with people. Sometimes, for me, there was anxiety of being around people. There was anxiety just to talk to somebody, just to look somebody in the eye, and even my own mother, my own sisters in my own house, and not my house, but my mom's house. But these are people that I grew up with, and everything was, we had relationships. But with us, when I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, I started to fear them. I started to be uncomfortable around them and anxious, thinking they're going to read my mind, or they're reading my mind and throwing words at me to make me paranoid, to make me just more anxious and to want to withdraw. And so that I talked about that in my story, and so that was why, or one of the reasons why I desired isolation. And also, it wasn't just them; it was the world at large. Everyone I encountered. All right, I'd be walking in the street, and somebody would yell at a car, would drive by in a car and yell out things to me. That was what my mind was telling me. Right? There's people on the street, kids would be reading my thoughts and telling me what I was thinking, telling me what my body was feeling. So there was extreme anxiety just to being around anybody. Even animals sometimes would, like they were speaking to me. And I had a cat, family cat, and I was afraid of that cat as well because the cat would just sometimes, it's like they would meow or something, and it would say something to me, right? So it was an extreme fear. And so I I prefer, and so because of that, isolation was where I was comfortable, right? And you know, it's just a natural response, right? So, but it's not a good place to be, right? If we stay in our comfort zone, we will never move forward. If we stay in our comfort zone, we'll never accomplish anything. And I think, you know, we have to take back ourselves, right? When we are, you know, schizophrenia is, I imagine it like this, right? I have a border, right? I have a border, I have a land, and on that land, you know, it has my borders and everything, and this is where my domain, this is my kingdom, it's where I reside. My castle is here, and you know, this is just where I govern. So schizophrenia now is an invading force, right? Is my borders, and outside of it now comes this invasion. And what it does is it comes up to my borders, and sometimes and when it hits you, you're never ready for it, right? So I don't know that this invasion is coming. I'm just doing my thing, taking care of my garden, you know, doing what it is, doing repairs on my castle, whatever it is. I'm just doing my thing, right? So you're never really prepared for it. But when it comes and it catches you, you know, it's already too late. It's on your borders. You know, it's on your borders already, and you have to fight to push it back. But that's not the typical response. The typical response is we run. We run and we hide, because this is something that we are not ready for. This is something that's greater than us. It's like an invading horde, and we are alone. Who's going to stand before that? Right? We're going to run because we're afraid we're going to die. And so we run, and we run the castle, and we find it, you know, a little cellar or whatnot, and we just hide in there. And we're just hiding, afraid, you know, and they're banging on the castle, and they're knocking it through and knocking it down, brick by brick, whatever it is, but we're just inside, just cowering, right? And they're already occupying the land, setting up tents and doing whatever, and we just maybe want to try to sneak out to get something to eat, but we can't. Lift your head up, the enemy's there, just living, defecating all over the place, you know, and we're just there starving in that cellar, man, just starving, you know. And so that's what I envision schizophrenia as, right? So it's easy to stay in that place where it's not that it's entirely comfortable, because in there we're miserable. For me, when I was in that room in my house, it was not a comfortable place per se, because I was always tormented in my mind. Voices were still there, but it was still better than dealing with the added burden of anxiety, right? I was sweating and I was itching, and I was just my heart just beating. I just got to get out of there. You know, I hated it, trying to hold back my thoughts. Shut up, shut up. That's what I'm talking to people, and I'm saying, shut up, don't say that. Why are you saying that? You know, and just leave me alone, all this stuff like that. And so, but when I was alone, the anxiety didn't spur the voices on, right? When I was with people, the anxiety would make the voices get worse. When I was alone, there were still things going on that I didn't want to hear, but it wasn't like just flowing out like a gushing fountain or whatever, right? So it was that bit of relief. So with that in mind, just being in that cellar and just being in a place where it's a lot more comfortable than going out there and getting captive, being held captive and beaten and abused and tortured and all that. It's easy to see why just being comfortable away from all that stress is more appealing. But I learned that the answers to my problems did not lay in hiding. It didn't lay in isolating myself in my room. It didn't. If I wanted my borders back secured, I wanted the enemies off, I had to find a way out of that cellar. And I had to find a way to attack these enemies. I had to push them back. There was no way about it, or else I'm going to die here. I'm going to die. There's no way about it. No, there's no two ways. That's how I saw it, right? Me, the person who I was. It's easy to stay in comfort and be something else, reduced to a shell, my former self, right? That wasn't me. And if I want to take myself back, I had to go out there, man. I never had a problem talking with people. I could communicate. We all had our challenges, but I could interact, and that was good. But here I couldn't interact with people without just being a burden. So if I wanted to get back to being a person who could engage with somebody and be comfortable, then I had to get out of my comfort zone. The comfort zone is a power that holds you, is a power that will limit you, is a power that will rob you, it's a power that will take away from you. It's a power that will keep you from being you. You understand? It traps you from actually being yourself, from actually being who you want to be, who you ought to be. The world, you're not supposed to be, pushed away from the world. You're supposed to engage with the world. You're supposed to interact with people. You're supposed to not be comfortable by yourself. You're supposed to be comfortable talking with somebody. Speaking your mind. Agreeing and disagreeing, whatever it is. You shouldn't have to be afraid. So I recognize that either I'm going to live like this, a pathetic, shell of myself, just, don't just existing, living on social assistance. My mom's paying everything for me, and I got this, on this social assistance, and that's just what that's gonna be me. This is my identity. This is my destiny. I could accept that fate. If I chose to remain comfortable, then this is what I accept. This is what I accepted for myself. But I didn't accept that. I saw that the way forward was through discomfort. The way forward was getting out from that cellar, right? And taking my enemies on. The way forward was facing my fears. The way forward was to be uncomfortable, was to go to the thing that made me afraid, that made me uncomfortable, that made me shake, that made me sweat, that made me want to run away, and to stand before that, and to maintain myself, to be in the midst of discomfort, be comfortable. That was the way forward for me, right? And so I left my room, and I didn't wait for my mother to come home anymore, and to come home and then come into my room and talk to me. I went out and I engaged her, and for about maybe 10 minutes at a time. That's pretty much what I could have taken at the time, what I felt. And I just did it slowly, so I took it, and I felt like running, felt like leaving, felt just paranoid, scared, nervous, shaking, but the voices are raging, but choosing to ignore all that, look at where I wanted to go. And I did it and went back to my room. I felt so relieved just to be back away from that. And it's easy. I could have said, man, I'm not going to do that again. That was horrible. But the next day, I done it again. My sisters came home. I put myself back out there. I learned to take pleasure in being uncomfortable. I learned to just the value of casting myself in the deep waters and just learning how to swim. Either swim or you sink, you know. And I realize that sometimes you think you're gonna sink, but if you just stand your ground, if you just believe in yourself, have that vision of where you want to go. Having a vision is important. See, I knew where I wanted to go. All right, I wanted to be able to be just normal. Right? I wanted to get out there. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to have a life. And in my mind, that's what I saw. And with the vision in mind, I stood through the things that made me uncomfortable. You know, it is a very difficult thing to do. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's not. And the reason why there's value in it is precisely because it's not easy. Precisely because it's not the thing that everyone just picks up and does. It's a thing you have to fight for. You have to fight for. You have to fight yourself. The struggle is not against the person in front of you. It's not about them. It's not about people understanding you or not understanding you. It's not about people seeing you sweating and scratching and shaking and not understand where you're coming from. It's not about people seeing you're talking and yet you're not there. You're spaced out. It's not about them understanding any of that. Please get that. It's about you finding yourself. In the fire is where you are being held captive. Your true self. In the flames, the place that you do not want to be. The place that you just want to run from. That's where you're needed. That's where you're being called. Because you're the only one that's going to rescue yourself. The doctors can't give you your identity. They'll give you something else, right? For me, they try to give me some kind of identity. Told me that my mom this, and I was there, that I'm not one of the few who fully recover from schizophrenia. You know, they don't think I'm the one because just my cycle and my history and the way that I've been, you know, the type of madness that was overflowing in my head and how it just continued to cycle with me. They want to just put me in a long-term care facility. That's who your son is. That's where he belongs, you know. So they try to tell me who I was, right? They couldn't rescue me. They couldn't come in and say and find the person who I was, who I wanted to be, and say, here you go. I had to go out there and take it. I had to go through the flames that burned, that made me not want to be there, that made me want to run because it hurt so much. But there I was being tied up, held captive, and I had to come out and I had to rescue myself. That's where I found myself, in the midst of all that. Not in isolation, not in being comfortable. It's in the things that I didn't want to do. I went out there, I got a job. First, after dealing with things in my house, and after I got more accustomed to that, I went out to where I was more uncomfortable. I went out for walks, talked to people on the street. I said, hey, how you doing? Sometimes people will be like, hi, I'll wave, say hello, good morning, whatever. Sometimes people won't even look at me. Sometimes it's just, but it wasn't about the response. It was about me be willing to engage with the same people who I would have thought hated me, who would have cursed me. You know, all of that. That was what it was, me willing to go out there and to not feel hatred, to not feel any kind of injustice, to not feel, why'd you hate me? What the hell did I do to you? You know, it was for me to go there and to deal with that and not feel any kind of fear or hatred or anger or anything for these people, but just to be myself, you know, and to just and to take myself back. That's how I took myself back. I had to fight for the things I wanted, right? So coming up with that basement, you have to go out there and you have to attack your enemy. You have to swing your sword. That's the only way. You have to go out there and you have to chop down enemy after enemy after enemy after enemy. You have to slay each and every one of them. And you send them running. The more of yourself you go out there through the fire that you take back, the more of the discomfort you face and you overcome it, the more that's the enemy you're chopping down. That's the enemy. The more you're putting yourself out there, that's more of yourself that you're taking. That's more of your borders. That's more of your land that you're securing. Right? The law on the land, the law that governs this world supports you when you take your stand. You gotta understand there's laws that govern the physical world. This is physics. There's a law that governs the mental world. Right? There's a law, and that law supports you when you take a stand before the enemy in here. The law says you have a right. And I talk about in my video there about the law that I fortunately was able to see and accept. Accept. I get those words. I say them wrong. But so that by recognizing that, it was not easy because everything is going to come contrary. The more you try to take something back for yourself, the more the enemy is going to fight you, right? The more the illness is going to put up a resistance. Oh, there's going to be a flood. They're going to try to overwhelm you and push you back. Nobody who conquers a territory is going to want to give that up. No, when these pathetic people on this land think they're going to rise up, we're going to squash that. And that's what happens. When you rise up and try to take back yourself, there's going to be a blowback. And you better understand that. But that doesn't mean when it comes hard, that's when you make it. That's no time to run. That's where you got to make that stand. That's where you got to have that conviction. That's where you got to know, this is where I am, sink or swim. I'm standing. I am not moving. This is where it is. This is where David is slaying his Goliath. You know what I mean? So when you go out there, don't think it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be a hard situation, but you endure the storm. You stand. All right? It's darkest, always darkest before the dawn. And when it seems like you got to run, you stand. I tell you what, it will break. You don't break. Once you stand during that, it will have to give way. The law on that land supports you. And he says, when you make the stand, when you have that faith, when you have that conviction, the enemy moves back. And you keep pursuing. You keep pursuing until eventually you take back yourself, you secure your board, and the enemy is pushed off the land. That's what it is. That's how I was able to take back myself. You know, sometimes people think you don't ignore the illness. Well, you know what? You don't turn around and talk to it either. You don't engage with it. Don't make it your friend. Don't name them. Do not engage with them. And I said that in other videos. Do not engage with them. That's not your friend. The same, you take whatever it is, you're on your medication and you stop it, this thing will kill you. See, to me, ignoring the enemy is just taking the medication and thinking that because now it's no longer a terrifying voice, it's now a friendly voice, and now you're engaging with that. To me, you're being delusional again. You're thinking this thing's your friend. It's not. Get that out your head, because you stop the medication, and that friendly voice, whatever it is that's talking to you, is going to turn into a dragon. That lamb is going to turn into a dragon, and it's going to seek to devour you. So it's not your friend. You don't need to engage. Look at what's in front of you. Look at where you want to go, and you ignore everything else that's trying to pull you back into conversation, into dialogue, into altercation. Don't worry about that. Look where you want to go and embrace that, because while you embrace that, the more you look at what you want, all right, you're going to become that. The more you look at it, you give thanks, you reach out for it, you're going to pull it in. And when you pull it in, something's got to leave. Something's going to go out, and it's going to be the thing that's contrary to what you just pulled in, right? If you have sadness and you pull in happiness, guess what? Sadness has to leave, right? So if you have torment and you pull in peace, guess what? Torment has to leave. If you have uncomfortableness, and you pull in comfort, guess what? The uncomfortable has to leave. That's just the law of the land. You see what I'm saying? So you have to recognize that and pull those things in. Leave the things that you do not want behind. Those are weights. Those are the things are heavy burdens, and you can't carry that forward. It will crush you. It's just gonna be a hindrance to you. It should make your journey that much more difficult, right? So that's what the power of the comfort zone. It's not a place you want to be. It's a place that is the power that binds you and holds you and kidnaps you. I was at a grocery store. I think it was last summer, and I came in. It was good, nice outside, and by the time I was finished shopping, and I saw a bunch of people lined up at the doors, the exit, and I went, and I was like, what's going on here? And I looked outside. It was just rain. It was pouring down. I was like, wow, But I'm just like, why is everybody like, it's just rain, man. So I just tied my bags and I just walked out. I'm like, I'm just going, my car's only just over there. Like, you know what I mean? So, but you got people are just so comfortable. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. You're not a witch. You know that you're not going to melt. It's not going to melt. But it's funny because when I left the grocery store and I went in my car and I was driving away, see other people started coming out too. I'm like, well, it makes sense. You're just going from here to, it's not like you're going to walk a mile or anything in the rainy and you're going to be soaked. You're just going to your vehicle. But it's just we're so used to being comfortable in our lives. This world is just being made to make you so comfortable. And that's the mentality that we have now. Is that if it's difficult, if it's uncomfortable, we kind of shy away from it. But that's not what you need. You need to put yourself out there. You need to be uncomfortable. Because you don't grow unless you have a little bit of stress. You don't grow unless you get outside your comfort zone. You don't grow unless you got to struggle a little bit. Right? So this is what this is. This is a stepping stone or stumbling stone. If you want to grow, get out your comfort zone. If you want to grow, do the things you don't want to do. Do the things that this illness is telling you not to do. Push yourself. Be wise. Understand these things, and get outside. Get out there. Engage with people. Don't engage with the enemy. Don't engage with the illness. Embrace the things you want. And that's this message for this video. Longer than I wanted to make it, but I'm hoping that it'll give somebody some kind of an idea or aid them in some way. It's a struggle for everybody. It's a struggle for it's not just for schizophrenia, man. Sometimes you don't need schizophrenia to be afraid, to be shy and timid and not want to engage anything. It's just a human thing. But the way to overcome that is just to throw yourself out there, man. You talk to people, you realize so many people are struggling with things on their own. It may not be just mental illness or schizophrenia. Sometimes it's a different form of, depression. People have anxiety. People have all kinds of things, or they know somebody, a family. It's like sometimes it's taking exams. Sometimes just social anxiety. Everybody's afraid, but we're so caught up into what everyone else is thinking. We're lost to what our own thoughts are, our own voice, who we are inside, what we want for ourselves. Forget what everybody else is thinking. I used to live in other people's head. I made my home in everybody else's head, and my own house was being overran by all these, craziness. So get out everybody else's head. Stay inside your own space. Maintain yourself. This is where you're needed. That's their world. They got their own battles to fight. You know what I mean? They got their own concerns to deal with. You got your own. Overcome yourself first before you start worrying about other people and what they're thinking or whatever. It's not about that. Who cares? It's about you. It's about you moving forward, building yourself. And when you get through that, then you can you look at what somebody else is going through, you can say, exactly what that is. You know how to get through that. You've been there. You can give, you know what I mean? You can help somebody else. And that's what I'm trying to do. So, yeah. Thank you.